Hello, hello. Welcome back to Positive Talk number 2 for the day. Hopefully you all are having a good week so far. I know that mine has been a lot of crazy, hectic things going on. Definitely have a lot of stuff down the pipeline that I'm working on getting out soon. So I'm excited for that. If you all haven't already, check out my website. I'm posting a lot of stuff for that, and all the links to all my previous Positive Talks are also there. So if you haven't seen any of my Positive Talks before, definitely check those out because this is episode 272. A lot of really awesome people. But we will go ahead and get this one started. Hello.
Hey,
How are you doing?
doing really well. You're Ben, right?
Yes.
Great to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you. I saw your story. It sounded like you had a long shift.
I did. It wasn't terribly busy though. I just had a couple calls, so it wasn't super nuts.
Awesome. Well, I will go ahead and let you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and then we can dive into a conversation.
Sure. My name is Trent Toney. I'm 30 years old. I am a firefighter in Hillsboro, which is sort of the Portland metro area. I'm a musician as well. I'm a songwriter. Been doing that most of my life. And I was just on the America's Got Talent 2023 season.
Awesome. So you said that you've been a musician pretty much your whole life. So how did that come into your life? Were your parents inspirations or?
Yeah, big time. My mom put me in piano lessons when I was 7. And I think it took 11 years of piano lessons. So I've done that a lot of my life. I randomly did this Hillsboro teen idol thing. I had no idea why. I just tried it out. And I did decent on it. I got in the top 3. So my grandpa started paying for vocal lessons, and I just kind of always had music avenues like that, here and there. When I was in my lower 20s, I went to this Ed Sheeran concert, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever that he could write songs like that. And so I never even really thought about that you could write songs. So I was like, oh, that seems like kind of feasible, and that's so cool. So I started teaching myself guitar at 23 and actually tried to write songs, and that's just kind of been my music journey. I do so I play guitar, piano, and I do use the little loop station, when you dub yourself over a bunch of times.
Yeah. So when it comes to auditioning for something like America's Got Talent, I know that there's a lot of stuff that goes on that people don't realize when it comes to those types of talent shows. So tell us a little bit about the journey you had to go on to get to where you got on the show.
Yeah. I think people don't exactly see how it really goes in those big shows because it went way differently than I thought it would.
Yeah.
You don't line up in this big line in California and just everybody auditions. You do it you audition on your phone in a lot of cases. I think some people do it live, but I think especially due to COVID, they've moved more to just doing it on Zoom, and you kind of do it in rooms of people, so you get to watch everybody else audition just on their phone. And there was 8 people with me, so you get to see them audition, and then you do your little audition, and you just kind of, if they like you, they move you on from there.
Yeah. I've had a lot of friends audition, and every single time it's a different story, and I was just that's nothing like they present on the shows. But we all know that when it comes to what sells and production and all of that stuff, that they have to create stuff to show people on TV. So when it came to your big coming out on stage in front of the judges,
yeah,
how did that whole process go? Because I know that can be a little nerve-wracking.
It was. I was kind of pooping my pants. I think I'd just been so nervous for the days leading up to it that when it was actually time to go, I was just wanting it to be over with, but I just could not get my heart into a place where I could just be cool with it. I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And so when I ran up there, it's like, oh my goodness, like they're standing there and there's like 1,000 people here. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it, just from what I got to see on the videos that have been posted, like your audition went a little differently because they pulled your phone out and
Yeah.
I've been to different things where people are like, oh, we're going to call this person on the phone. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I'd want them calling people. So how did that go for you? Because that would be rough.
I had no clue they were going to do that. And a lot of people, I think the whole thing was staged. And, you know, I mean, it's a TV show, so stuff can be, you know. But in my case, it wasn't. It was very like, okay, that's out of pocket, you know. And so when they, you know, started chanting, like, call her, I think in my mind, I was like, oh my God, am I going to like shut down this whole thing right now? Because I was thinking about it. Cut my phone there. Spider-Man. I didn't know what to do at first, and they kind of cut this part out, but I did actually kind of say, like, let's not do it. But Faith's brother was actually in the crowd, and he's the best, you know. And so when they were chanting that, I made eye contact with him, and I kind of gave him like a, what the heck do I do type face, and he was just kind of smiling and shrugged. So I thought, shoot, let's call her. I mean, I was already, like, Faith and I had been building up a friendship around the time, like a little bit out, like, I don't know exactly when time was, but like for a few months we had been kind of building up a friendship again. So I knew it wasn't going to be crazy. And I knew we had each other's backs. So it wasn't going to be like just completely, like, she knew when I was auditioning and she had been praying for me. And so when I did that, I knew she'd probably be okay with it, but we were both a little blindsided.
Yeah. I was watching it and I was just like, oh, types of things like this, you don't pull in people's relationships, but I mean, I think it's a memorable thing for sure. And I mean, it puts you in front of a lot of new people for them to see your talent and your ability to write songs. And I mean, the one that you shared was really good. I mean, I was listening and I instantly went to like Apple Music and I was like, I'm going to download this. And I reached out to you and I was like, okay, like, he responded. This is awesome. Because I thought that was a really good audition. I think a thing that was really nice about it was like you were vulnerable and shared where the song came from. And I think that that's a really nice thing to be able to do on a large show like that, is be a guy and be able to share like a little deeper than like, oh, you know what, and just like kind of shrug it off. I thought that was kind of cool.
Thank you. I mean, I'm all about, you know, emotional vulnerability for guys, man. It's healthy. It's the only way to go.
Yeah. I mean, being a part of like a squad with the firefighters, like, that's an area where creating that type of relationship with other guys is also really important. Like, I have some friends that volunteer, and then of course you see all this stuff in the news of the things that firefighters have to go through.
Right.
And I mean, we're in a world where fires seem to become more and more relevant here. I mean, especially on the West Coast with all the things that are going there. Here in Richmond, we had like a whole week span where all the fires in Canada were kind of sending smoke to like yellow out our skies, which was pretty intense.
Yeah, it's crazy up there right now. And I mean, going off what you're saying, man, you know, I think it's an old school mentality for firefighters or really anybody in the first response or that type of realm or profession to kind of just muscle through it and be like, I'm tough. I'm a guy. Like, you grit through it. It's part of the job. If you can't do it, don't do it. You know. And I think that's changing in the culture slowly. I think people are starting to realize, okay, you gotta open up. You gotta and you gotta share how you're feeling, and you gotta like be vulnerable in that way, because it's just it'll manifest itself in one way or another. You know, like I don't think like God didn't make us to just, you know, bottle up everything inside and, you know, white knuckle it through.
Yeah. I mean, first responders and people that go to things like that, they see a lot of things that mentally is hard to process. And I think that it's something that you do have to talk about and kind of let it out, because if you hold that all inside, like that can be really rough. And a lot of times you end up, it's taking it out on the people
Sure.
in other ways. And that can be really rough. I know one of the things that you said during your audition was that like you were just young and growing and learning, and that is a thing that might have ended the relationship. And I think that that is something that a lot of people aren't willing to admit. They'd rather lay the blame on something else or someone else. So being able to see, hey, we were young, we were navigating the world. I think that that's a really big thing, and it especially shows a lot of growth on your part. And it sounds like you both have kind of gotten to that point where communication has come through, and you guys have been able to like kindle a friendship out of that.
Which is a miracle in and of itself, that we can, you know, be talking and be friends. You know, I think that's like unfathomable, you know, whereas I think back, you know, 6-7 months ago, like we had no communication. So it's just a huge blessing. And I think, you know, that journey's been largely like, how can I look at this out of what I've done in my part, you know, and like what can I do to grow myself, you know, in this process. And it is about like being real with how I'm feeling, being real with how I've been raised, being real with just living in kind of like the real world, rather than like this perception or that we like maybe build up, or at least I was. And it's just kind of a breath of fresh air to live in reality. And I think it probably is a breath of fresh air for her to be able to be my friend, and both of us be able to talk openly about how we're feeling and where we're at, and, you know, not live in like a fantasy world, you know?
Yeah. So when it comes to like your journey into like becoming a firefighter and that type of stuff, is that a job that you had wanted to do since you were younger, or is that something that kind of came in later in life?
Yeah, definitely the latter. No pun intended. What happened? It was kind of I think maybe I had thought about it before, and it had been one of those careers where I was like, oh, that's so cool. You know, like how can, like, that doesn't even seem like a real job, you know, or something like that. And I remember my dad had said that back in the day, like, oh, if I could go back, I'd be a firefighter, you know? When everything was I was at one of my lowest places. I was hanging out with one of my best friends, Hayden, and he was telling me, you know, he's a firefighter, kind of near where I work-ish, and everything he was telling me about the job just sounded awesome. And at that time, I was in a place in my heart where I wasn't wanting to pursue music anymore. I was just like, I just want like basic job. I want to be a simple guy, you know. I would love to just love God, love my wife, and have a normal job. You know, I'm not trying to like make a name for myself. And that just sounded awesome. And so I was at the lowest place, and I just went and started hanging out at the station. You know, like most people pull, what do you call it? Like, yeah, the ride-alongs,
Mm-hmm.
and they might do one, you know, or whatever. I would do like 3 a week, and they were just kind of like, oh, it's, you know, Trent basically clocking on, you know, and I just like, because they kept letting me come, and I'd be as helpful as I could, but I knew nothing, and they just kind of let me hang out. And then eventually they let me just kind of go in through the academy, and then I became an intern there, and then I went for like TOD, and so it just kind of keeps developing. And it's, yeah, I think it was definitely just kind of I found it in a dark place, and it's been incredibly, what do you call it, healing for me, just to be around, guys and like a team and working through stuff and just learning, a lot.
I mean,
Yeah, I love it. It's my favorite job I've ever had, for sure.
I was going to say, you definitely have to have a lot of heart and a lot of drive when it comes to running towards things that most people are running away from. So, and I mean, it's an unpredictable thing. I'm a problem solver. I'm the type of person that I like things to not be the same every single day. So I can only assume that when it comes to putting out fires or going to rescue people in really dangerous situations, that you guys are on your feet and problem solving. And
Right.
I mean, you have to work as a team, be able to communicate. I think that I've read a lot of books when it came to my coaching, and a lot of times I look at teams that are extremely effective, and in situations like that, your team has to be pretty effective when it comes to communicating with each other, because your lives and other lives depend on it.
Yeah, it never goes how you think it's going to go. I mean, we drill every day for like different scenarios, and you get that scenario, but then it's totally whacked out from what you thought it would be, And so, yeah, it's not boring. It's always something new every day. And I mean, sometimes you get that perfect scenario where it's like, oh, this is exactly how we drilled and we nail it, but typically, we're not responding to something because it like things are going on like a what do you call it, like a nice methodical manner. We're usually going to a situation because everything's a catastrophe, and so we're like trying to try to put it together, and I think we're trying to figure it out too. I mean, we might have all the training, the drilling, but we're also like, what the heck, So they're trying to keep you cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's an amazing type of thing to keep your brain running on. And I think that you learn a lot of valuable skills that can be like brought into real life. I've had a lot of friends that go into the military and then come back out and try to like adjust to civilian life. And I always tell them, I was like, don't forget that you've got some skill sets that like most civilians don't have. Like, you take an average civilian and put them in a situation where like panic and emotions are high, and
Sure.
A lot of people freeze up, but there's a very few people who have been trained to be able to think in those moments of need. And I think that that's a skill set that you should definitely lean on for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm relatively new at it. I think I've been doing it for a little less than a year now. And I still feel like I think I will for quite a while, still feel like, man, I just wish I knew more. I wish I could be more effective. I wish I knew X, Y, and Z, but I think subconsciously, I think you're totally right. I think there is more that we're just by being thrown into situations like that. I think, my mind and our minds are being changed to be able to handle things differently, or just look at catastrophe in a different way. Because as soon as if you panic, you're going to totally, screw everything up. Like the best, like, what do they say? Smooth is slow and slow is fast. That's like a super common phrase we say. And when we drill and we're trying to or if you're on a call and we've got to, stabilize a vehicle, or we have to extricate somebody, or there's a fire, and you're like just trying to do everything all at once, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna grab this hose, and I'm gonna grab these tools, and I'm gonna run over here, and like you're doing too many things at once. But it's like, okay, how can I slow down? All right, slow is smooth. So if I'm just taking my time, grab this thing, think about it first. I'm gonna grab X, Y, and Z, and I'm gonna move over here. I mean, yes, it's an emergency, but like if I remain calm and I just go slowly, it'll actually be faster for everybody involved. Because if I'm dropping stuff, and it's just gonna make it worse.
Yeah, that's definitely. So when it comes to all the emotions and everything that you're feeling and going through in that line of work, like how does that translate into being a singer-songwriter for you?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that. That's a cool question. I think, I don't know if it's the job or, just everything else in my personal life, but I've definitely become a much more emotional person. Like I cry way easier than I ever have in my life. You know, like I'm not like crying all the time, but like it's just not. It's something that's a part of my life now, and so I think I'm sure it's affected my songwriting and just being able to be more vulnerable and just be okay. That's how I'm feeling, and that's feelings aren't like I know feelings don't dictate reality, but they do dictate like what I believe about myself or what I believe about my reality at that point. So I think I'm a lot more free with just expressing them in a healthy manner, and songs can be. I noticed when I was writing some of my recent songs, I would take phrases and stuff that we would use in a fire department and put them into lyrics, because I think as a songwriter, you do just kind of pull from your current environment. And so I think for a lot of years, I was just in my room writing and practicing a lot. And so there's not a lot to draw from, the walls or,
Yeah.
but like when I found myself writing lyrics like, oh, I'm breaking down doors, I'm like, things like that where I'm like doing forcible entry, or I'm like writing about the mountains and like the trees that I'm driving by when I'm like riding in the rigs, there's just a lot. There's people, there's scenery, there's like situations, there's like teams, there's like closeness, where people are coming together, and there's people who are like having disagreements and falling apart. And it's just, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of material to like draw from and write from, to be honest.
Yeah. It's always amazing to talk to like teenage people who are writing music, because you think about like the things that they're experiencing and like the limited things that they have to pull from. Not saying that there are teenagers out there that don't have a lot of experiences, but it's definitely, you see like people fall into like writer's block, or they start to like lose passion to put stuff out there.
Right.
And a lot of times it's just like, sometimes you have to go out and experience life again to re-inspire yourself. And maybe your music shifts into a new like line of work. But I think a lot of times it is, you just have to get out of your four walls and kind of experience life and let it give you some new lyrics to use for your music.
I think there's truth to that. I think about people like, what's the song that she wrote? Was it Olivia Rodriguez who wrote the ID or the driver's license song or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's got to be one of the best songs ever written. And she's like a teenager or something. That blows my mind. Like, I don't think I'll ever write a song that good, And that she's like a child, like essentially like a kid. And then I look at, like you can look at Ed Sheeran through the years and like how his albums have changed over like different times in his life. And it's super cool to see how he'll like write an album about, being a teenager and wanting to, make it, or then he's like, troubled relationships, or like to like albums where he's talking about his family and mental health and things like that. And it's just, and then you look at artists like Damien Rice, who are, middle-aged guys. I think he is. And he like comes out with that album. Oh, like you can't write that album as like a teenager or a 20-year-old. Like there's levels to that stuff. There's like life experience that is just different. But I don't know, man. It's just cool because everybody's got different realities. And it's songwriting is just a mysterious thing. Where it's just like something comes from nothing, but it's also like a culmination of everything that you've like sensed and come together, and you're just kind of expressing it in one package, like some feeling.
It's definitely something that not everyone can do. I've been a person who I can definitely express a lot of my thoughts and feelings, but it comes out more in sentences and long form YouTube videos than it does into creating songs that people would listen to. But like, it's interesting because like as a kid, there were a lot of songs that I really liked, but I never really understood the meaning of the song. like I would say Fast Car
Right.
was something when I was a kid, I'd sit there and I'm like saying, "Oh yeah, we were driving in the car."
Right.
Then like as an adult in my 30s now, I listen to that and I'm like, this is such a deep song, and
Totally.
like I
Yeah.
could not
I
relate to that.
Bronco. Or whatever.
I'm just like I'm sitting here thinking about all the things because that song's pretty much talking about how hard life can get, and
Oh my
like no
God.
matter
Yeah.
what childhood dreams you have, like you can keep jumping towards them, and then life kind of throws on some new weights for you
Yeah.
to kind of
Oh my
navigate with.
gosh. That song hits so hard, man, because it sounds, it's kind of one of those songs where it's like, this feels happy. This is just kind of a vibey song. And you're like, holy crap, this is like someone who's gone through like the worst and all they want to do is just run away with someone they love. Like, that's so like deep. I love that.
Yeah.
And like, doesn't that, maybe that's all that, sometimes anybody wants, you're like, you just want to have that person and be able to like get away, from everything.
And
But yeah,
I think that that's like the beauty of songs is like people get to express themselves. I think even the people who don't necessarily like speak their emotions to people, I think a lot of artists really write their emotions into songs. And like if you read between the lines and you sit there and listen to it and understand all the different connections they're adding in there, you can kind of get to know them as an artist a little bit better.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, a lot of the time it's subconscious. I think as an artist, you don't always have a lot of control. And so I think you can like learn about somebody like based off the music they're even just listening to. And it's like, I feel like I maybe know better where you're coming from right now. You listen to a lot of that,
Yeah.
Or so totally.
It's interesting because like I don't think that they've gotten to the point where like AI and music like playlists have gotten like really know what type of song I want to listen to.
Right.
But there's definitely days where like I'll put it on shuffle and I'm like, this shuffle is really not on the same frequency as me today. They're like sitting there playing nighttime songs and I'm like, you're trying to put me to sleep. Like I'm trying to hype myself up before I go pitch my business to someone. And they're like, good night, go to sleep. Life is happy, sad, whatever. And I'm like, no, fix this. Not this playlist today.
Eventually they will though. They'll like be able to know exactly what we want to listen to at that moment. It'll be creepy as all get out, but I'll probably
I can't wait until, we're already at the point where AI is creating its own songs and stealing artists' voice. I would love
crazy
it to like be able to take my thoughts and turn it into a song to where at least I can do a little dance to my thoughts instead of them sitting in here.
It's all about expressing, man. You gotta let it out in one way or another. Even if you're listening to the AI generated Cartman from, South Park singing Linkin Park, it's the best.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes when I'm sitting there like listening to music, I'm like changing the lyrics in my head to like things that I'm actually thinking.
Oh,
and
you're one of those.
I'm pretty good at like improv. I did that type of stuff when I was in high school and like into college. So like I'm pretty quick on my feet. Like I'll take any Disney song and turn it into my own song because I've heard so many of them so many times.
You do that with movies too? You put yourself there? You're one of those.
I can always pick the character that I am in the movie. I'm like, yep, this one was written for me. I know it.
Funny. I love that. Yeah, it's funny because I don't do that, but I know I have friends who do that. Like we specifically had this conversation where they're like, oh yeah, like I don't, and then they won't watch a movie if they can't put themselves in that movie when they get really, really bad. They're like, oh, like I can't watch an animated movie because like I'm not a cartoon. I'm like, well, they're all actors.
It's interesting because like my mood can change pretty quickly. Like if I know I need to be hyped up and I'm not in the right mood, I can put myself in the right mood, even if it's as temporary. But I can put music or songs or movies on to kind of shift my mood temporarily. Usually, I usually try to feel everything instead of like trying to avoid it. But if I need to be really hyped up, I'm like, okay, I need to create a playlist for this because music will
Totally.
take me there. And I mean, I do a lot of activism. I do a lot of stuff where I get a lot of hate thrown at me, and I have to listen to a lot of people's opinions that are very different than mine. So I don't like to attack people. I like to hear people. So even when they're screaming at me, I'm like, I need to be in the right mindset to be able to hear them. So like, I'll turn on some songs that are like, you got to believe in love. You got to like make the world a better place. And I'll go and do it. But then afterwards, I'm just like, oof, that was a lot.
Man. Yeah, I mean, it helps get you, you know, it definitely can help. But yeah, if you, I can sure that can be pretty crazy draining.
So when it comes to your music, I think something that's beautiful about music is it means something to you as an artist who created it. But when it comes to other people listening to it, they can attach their stories and their meanings to it. Have you had any conversations with people about songs that you've written and they kind of like attach it to their own specific story that's different than how you wrote it?
Huh. Yeah, I don't know about my first few songs. I know one of them. I know people just like the vibe and they like them, and I think maybe they did that. I think I've had more of a response with that with the newest song, Always and Lately, that I wrote about faith that was on the show. I think people, it's a pretty universal feeling. I'll love you forever, and I love you right now. You know, and it's I have had people reach out to me asking to have the song like for their wedding, you know, or something like that, or people just putting it like, you know, with like them and their special person on their story, you know, and they put the song back there, and so I think I can see people like relating to that because my other songs have been sometimes like oddly specific. It almost feels like,
Yeah.
and I mean this song is obviously very specific to me because I was writing about a specific person and it was a specific scenario, but I think people can definitely relate to it. And then just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally written about being married to somebody. So I think, you know, it's funny. I can see who's listening to it, like what age range, and it's definitely more of like people who are newlyweds. Like
Yeah.
probably, I think the most common age range is like 27 to 33 or something like that. So like people who aren't like necessarily in a place where they're trying to figure it out and they're like trying out different love, they get their heart broken, you know, it's like people who on my end that I'm seeing that are listening to it are like people who are, I would imagine, kind of done with that, and they're like, I want my person, you know, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think people definitely get to that age where it's just like, okay, I mean, there's memes and jokes about that age group, of course, that it's just like, okay, when I was this age, I was like, they have to have this long list of attributes.
Oh my
And now
gosh,
it's
yeah.
just like, all I need them to do is breathe. And
They need to love me, they have to have a pulse.
so it's definitely interesting that when people are kind of like navigating through that, we're definitely a lot pickier when we're younger. I realized that more of what I started looking for was like someone who was like reliable versus that not really being a thing in my early 20s. I was just like, oh, I want them to have all of these things. But now I'm like, I really want like stability, reliability.
Yeah.
I want them to like be able to think for themselves.
Right.
So when it comes to like your journey into music, since you're kind of dabbling your feet in it, where do you kind of see you taking your music in the future?
Well, you know, it's nothing's been offered to me like on a silver platter. Like my life isn't any different. I still go to work. I still just kind of do all the same things. I hang out with the same people. I, you know, still go out and golf with my buddies, you know, or whatever, and go to church. So nothing's changed. I think, you know, some people maybe think that, you know, you're going to maybe become famous overnight and someone's going to reach out to you with this crazy, you know, record deal or something like that. And I know that's not outside the realm of possibilities, but I think for myself, I just have to live in my reality. And my current reality is, you know, I want to have a family. Like, I want to be a husband. I want to be able to provide for them. And like, I'm not going to try to make music happen on this wing and a prayer. Like, that's my dream. I mean, it was my dream for years and years. And I think there's always going to be a part of me that's like, man, I would love to be up there singing my song and have people singing it with me and people who like know it. That would be just like so cool. But I think as far as priorities, it's just not up there like it used to be. So I have to live in the current reality of how can I be, you know, the future husband I want to be for, you know, someone, and how can I be the, you know, the provider, and how can I be like what can I do on my part to be that person for somebody. And you know, if something crazy happened where music was offered to me like that, I mean, awesome, you know. But I don't think I'm gonna steer away from this healthy trajectory to chase a dream if it's not, you know, I'm just gonna put all my heart into that instead of the healthy things.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in the realm of music and acting and other really out there careers that aren't just like an easy go get a degree type of thing, they chase something and forget what they're sacrificing. And it sounds like you've kind of seen what might have to be sacrificed for a successful music career.
Yeah.
And I think that something beautiful about that is like you knowing what you value and holding that as like a core value. Like, you can make choices that can still move you towards music,
sure,
but hold on to those values of like, a family is really important to me. Like, because a lot of times people will lose something beautiful chasing a career that they hope will bring them something.
Right.
And I think that you definitely got a head on your shoulders where you see what's important to you. And I think that in that realm, because we live in a world where we just got flipped upside down from the pandemic. So rules
Sure.
have changed a lot for things. And I think, I mean, we've got all the writers on strike right now that are demanding like respect and rights that they weren't given before. So I think we're moving into a realm. And then, of course, we've got technology that gives you the ability to put your stuff out there for a really large audience. So I would say keep fighting for like what your heart is putting out there. And like, I think music and family can be something that you continue to move towards.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be black and white. I think that's an old thing. I would definitely put like, it's gotta be this or this, you know, either I'm pursuing this or I'm pursuing that. And I said, you're totally right. Like, I can still write music, I can still release it, people can still listen to it, you know, and I can still make healthy choices for myself, you know.
Yeah.
So you're totally
like not having your value like ride on views and numbers and all of those things exist, because I think that as social media has grown, like a lot of people have been falling into that trap of like, I'm not worth something until I hit this many numbers. And it's just that's a trap that can be very dangerous for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, I mean, my perspective, and this is me as an individual, as like a Christian talking, like you know, I see things as like, if I'm putting my heart into this as something that I think is going to make me happy, like I'm essentially putting false hope in that. And I could do that in music, because like, oh, is this what's going to like, what makes me happy when I go to bed at night, when I wake up? It's like, well, it definitely like fulfills me in a lot of ways, but is this something that's going to like ultimately bring me life? It's like there's parts of it that could, you know, and you could do that with a job, you could do that with a hobby, you could do that with a person, which I found is really dangerous, and something I've done where like, oh, I'm gonna get happiness from this person, you know. Mm-hmm. And in my world, as a Christian, like I see that as, like idolizing things. And so I think, all right, I know for myself, like Jesus is who brings me joy. Jesus is who fulfills me. So like as long as I have that connection and I'm worshiping him and I'm seeking him, all those other things just come in naturally. And it's not like I have to do this or I have to do this combination. It's just like, they're just there. Like you're saying, man, like they're like, oh, I can pursue this healthy thing. I can hope this person is in my life, but I'm not going to like, put everything on it. But I can like, hope and believe, and then I can, hope for, like I can do music. I can do a job I like, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when it comes to having faith in a religion, I think that it's a beautiful thing to be able to say, like, if it's meant to be, it's going to be. Like, I have to learn how to put my life in God's hands and I mean, God gives us gifts to use in this world. And I think that it's all about figuring out why God gave us the gifts he gave us and then use them to serve and help the rest of the people that were put on this earth. Because I think that that's a beautiful thing. I know that a lot of times when it comes to the world that we're living in, you see a lot of people moving further and further away from religions and things like that. And I think that it's because so many people are trying to force something on people. And I think when it comes to God's love and the things that he wants the world to have, like, it wouldn't feel so forced on people. I think a lot of people have love and gifts to use if we could like help each other find those gifts and use them in the correct way. Because I definitely think music is in that realm of gifts that God gave you to kind of share. And I think he's putting those opportunities in there, but he's also put those lessons in there for you to see, like, don't forget what's really important here. It's the love and connection with someone else that you can be loved by and love in return.
100%. And it's like, and it's interesting because some people, like, their music for them is totally for them. Like, I don't play it out. Like I play with my room sometimes, and it's like, oh, that's cool, like, because instinctively I think, oh, music is such a social thing, but it can be like healing like that just for you. I mean, just as like writing a song, like I know, like we're saying, just expressing yourself and letting your emotions out. I guess if no one even hears it, I think it's still healthy. That's why I think people probably say songwriting is therapeutic and like, well, it helped me through all this stuff. It's like this nether that I was writing, a song to or whatever. I mean, I'm like basically saying what I'd say to a counselor or something, I'm just saying everything in my heart.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but ultimately, I mean, music instinctively feels like something that's supposed to be shared. I don't know why. Like, I feel like whether it's like I'm singing a worship song, it's like between me and the Lord, or it's like I'm singing a song that everybody's singing, around a campfire or something. It just, it instinctively feels like something that brings people together. I was really shocked by that when I first started playing live, like my own music and stuff, like 7 years ago. Because after I'd seen that Ed Sheeran concert, I was like, oh, I want to like start playing at open mics and stuff. And so I started doing that. And eventually when I learned enough songs, I could do a show. I'd noticed that like, oh, like people are like instantly like connected in the room. Like people you become friends with people really quickly. Like, and I'm like, I don't even like know this person. Like, why are we like buddies now? It's like, I feel like we like really connect right now for no reason. And like music just kind of brings people together. It's like this, I think like originally I'm pretty like black and white and like not like voodoo-y feeling anything like that, but I'm like, music is weirdly spiritual. It just is.
Yeah.
And I'm just learned to accept that.
Yeah.
Along with,
I think when people like actually share like authentic pieces of themselves, like that's a chord that connects with other people's like deeper authentic selves. And I think something beautiful about music is like it allows people to connect with that part of themselves that a lot of the world and the way things are kind of prevent us from connecting to that.
Yeah.
So I think music definitely breaks down some of those barriers that are put up by society of like men aren't allowed to cry, men are this, men are that, women are this. And then you get music and it's like you see people you never would have suspected crying because like it hit them in a
Oh,
way. It like got them to think about something that they were trying to suppress or not think about.
oh my God. Yeah, you're so right.
I know that when it comes to the different songs and stuff that I connect to, because I like to kind of create reels of like my life and I'll like take photos and stuff that I took over the year and then like add songs that were meaningful.
Yeah.
And to those memories, I can attach those songs. But like I go back in time and it's kind of like reliving all those
Oh, that's
feelings.
cool.
So it's just like interesting to kind of attach music to those memories because it instantly brings me back to some of those memories and I'm like I can feel it all again because life gets hard sometimes and it makes you forget some of the beautiful things, so having music and things that can bring you back to those moments are really special.
So that's interesting. So you'll kind of divide your life into like sections of like, like or seasons that you were in, and you can almost like assign songs and like a vibe to that certain season.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's crazy
Huh.
because one of my friends did that for us back in college. Like she
Yeah.
put a Facebook video up of like the semester and she added songs that meant something to our group of friends.
Yeah.
And I just kind of continued with it with my life. And like I kind of see the people who existed from the very first one I did and
Yeah.
see how we've progressed as friends
Yeah.
in our lives. And then I see some people who maybe disappeared along the journey and maybe reappeared or just we
Oh
haven't
yeah.
realigned, but it's fun to kind of see that.
That's interesting because I know like when I had Facebook or something, it would try to like generate those for me or whatever, where it said, "Oh, this is or 2018 for you" with like a photo montage, and I'm like, "What the crap?" And they put like the rain on top of it, it's like some country like banjo playing over the top. I'm like, I was like devastated, like some podunk thing on top of it, But I like how you're saying it, like I wonder if that's kind of like healthy to be able to like look at your life in chapters like that and be able, because I know I'm pretty like ADD or ADHD or whatever it is, so like when I look back everything feels like this crazy jumble where I was feeling like highs and lows in here and all these strings, but it'd be kind of nice to be able to look at it like that and be like, oh, this was this section, this was this section, I like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the type of person that I feel a lot. Like no one that meets me will ever say like that I hold my feelings in. Like they know I feel everything. So as I've grown and like leveled up in life, I've
Yeah.
realized that I had to like leave some people behind that weren't willing to level up
Mhm.
and move forward in life at the speed I was going.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you level up, it can be really hard because sometimes you have to leave all the things behind to
Wow.
level up to the next level. And I've definitely gone into cycles of where I feel very alone and I start to doubt the leveling up. I'm like, ooh, did I really want to like leave all those people behind? Like I'm here all alone and life is hard and I don't have anyone. So there's times where like I get into that mindset of like,
Mm.
this was a bad idea. So I have to like go back sometimes and like remind myself like of the growth and of the people that
Yeah.
support me, because just because they're not standing physically here doesn't mean that they're not there to support, because if they were there
That's
supporting you in the past, we're all adults. Adulting gets hard. Sometimes we're all working on our own problems, but we're
yeah.
still there to support each other, just not in the same way as we used to.
Big time. I mean, I think I've got so many buddies who like some of them I haven't seen in years, but like I know that dude would die for me today,
Mhm.
and it's like, but then on the other hand, what you're saying is really interesting, like to be able to level up in sorts. I don't think we're supposed to, not we're supposed, I mean, I don't know if anybody's supposed to do anything, but like I don't think, I don't want to write somebody off, but like you're saying, leveling up, or like if I'm doing something that I know is healthy for me to grow, if my relationship with this other said person is, crossing some type of barrier that's making me not able to like continue that healthy choice, like you kind of have to almost, and it's not like I don't want you in my life, but these are like, this is my castle, this is my kingdom, this is me, and there's rules in my kingdom, right? And like if you can't play by those rules, like I have to, like I can decide who's there,
Yeah, like you can still send support and love
Yeah.
via FaceTime or whatever you need to do, but sometimes you can't have others who have kind of fallen off the track of moving towards their dreams.
Right.
Because there have definitely been times where like I'm super excited about something and this energy is so helpful for me to move towards my goal.
Yes.
Whereas like someone else, maybe they're not working towards their goal.
Sure.
And I'll share my success and they're just like, oh, whoop-de-doo, good for you. And like it kills my mood so much that I lose all excitement for moving forward. So I'm like, there are people who will celebrate my success. I will surround myself by them. And then just the ones you left behind, hopefully your success will be an inspiration to them later. Because one thing I've learned is like people don't usually celebrate you until you've proven to them that the crazy journey you're about to jump on actually leads to something. Because on my journey, there have been so many naysayers and people who are just like, oh, you're not going to get there. Good luck. And if you fall on your face, they're the first to say, see, I told you so. I'm looking for the friends in my life that are like seeing me fall on my face and they're like, get back up. You've got a dream to reach. Come on, keep going. And that's the type of support we should all have. We don't have to burn bridges and like cut people out completely, but you definitely don't want people like saying I told you so when you fall down and
killing the block, bro. No, like those people are, I mean, the people who are there, from the beginning and believe in you from the beginning, those people are just so awesome. You got to cherish those people. That there's always those few who are there and just believe in you no matter what. And it's so fun. I've got one buddy who I remember I met, I think it was 6-7 years ago. And I think 6 years ago, we were hanging out at a mutual friend's house, and I had my guitar, and my one buddy was like, "Oh, like he writes songs, you should hear him." And the first time we ever met, he listened to the songs, and he was like, "You're gonna be famous. You're gonna be on TV one day." I like 100% believe it, And it was so funny. And so then when I went on America's Got Talent, not by any means does that mean like I've made it, because I haven't. I got my 15 minutes of fame. He was like, "I told you, bro, from the beginning." There, and so those people are just special. They hype you up from the beginning, and it, not just going on like a random tangent, but like, I think you need different types of friends. I mean, you need realists. You need people who are gonna like challenge you and like counsel you, and I think people that you can pour into as well, who just need you, But then you also just need those friends who are just like, you're gonna make it no matter what you do. And they're just always hyping you up and cheering you on. Like, yeah, you gotta have those people.
Yeah, I learned very quickly that I surrounded myself with too many people that I was pouring into because I went empty, and that's a rough place to be in. So it's definitely, you want a fair balance of everyone, like peers that are in the same struggle bus that can understand, people you can pour onto underneath, and then people above you that have done the things you're trying to do that can pour that wisdom onto you, because life needs all of those for sure. Because without any of them, you kind of get stuck in a spot where it's just like you don't have the wisdom of someone telling you it's possible. You don't have someone that supports you that's like, I understand you, and you don't have the people underneath you that are just like inspired by you and everything that you've done.
I have a buddy, Carter Howard. He said that exact thing. He was like, if you're in the healthiest place you can be is when you have peers that you're relating to, people who are counseling you, and then someone you're able to pour into and counsel. You know, like you have to have all three of those layers, you know,
Yeah.
like with what you're saying, you know, like don't have too much flowing in one direction, like only like pouring into people and have nobody to just relate to, you know, but that I totally agree with you on that.
Awesome. Well, I see that we're getting close to the end of the hour, which is crazy. The hour just flew by. But I want to say thank you so much for coming on and doing this live with me. And if there's anything that we can do to help support you in the direction that you're trying to go, feel free to let us know. I'll give you the last couple of minutes to kind of wrap things up.
Okay, well, man, prayer is awesome. You know, it means so much to me. I just believe in that with all my heart, and just that I'd move forward, you know, and in a way that's not out of fear, but just, you know, I've just got a lot of big things to do and decide in the near future, and so just, you know, supporting me, anybody who, you know, feels that or feels, you know, anything, you know, if they want to pray, it just means a lot to me.
Awesome. And I know you've been posting a lot about your mustache and
the
support, and
it's pretty bad, isn't it?
I love it.
At least get the handlebars though.
I mean, I've seen a lot of firefighters with them.
Dude, there's a lot of firefighters that would be envious of the one you got right now, buddy.
Mine, people always talk about how I don't connect here because a lot of people's connect. I don't shave mine, but I keep mine because, one, as a life coach, like, if I shave and look like a child, people are like,
child.
They're like, I don't want to get business advice from a 13-year-old child, but it also gives me, like, facial shape. I always tell people, like, facial hair is like men's makeup. Like, it gives us, like, those contour lines that are so important.
Yeah. You've at least got like a coherent like idea. Mine's just like patchy, terrible. Like this, you know. So you got that going for you, man. But thank you.
Yeah.
You know, Dash appreciates it too. We're gonna get till the end of August, and we'll see how I feel. But
awesome. Well, it was great chatting with you, and I will talk to you soon.
Too. Yeah, you've been delightful. I can't wait to hear more and to see where you go. That's awesome, man.
Awesome. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.